My next Patreon question is from Diver, who wanted me to compare two movies based on one of the most famous disasters of the 20th century. Which is the better film about the RMS Titanic disaster, the 1997 James Cameron film, or A Night to Remember? I think both of these films did a very good job of dramatizing the event and adapting it to a cinematic format. While Cameron's Titanic went for something on a massive scale, A Night to Remember opted for something smaller and admittedly more historically accurate. But which do I find to be a stronger film? I'm actually going to pick Titanic. Cameron made the choice to focus on two fictional protagonists as we watch their romance blossom on the Titanic. He really leaned into classic Hollywood storytelling when mounting this epic, but also allowed us to truly get to know his two leads. Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet have terrific chemistry as Jack and Rose, and I bought into their romance. When watching the film, I become so invested in their story, I actually hope the ship will miss the iceberg. The attention to detail James Cameron brought to the film is magnificent. You can tell how much research he took in making sure the sets were accurate. You also get a sense of the class system on board, as well as the confidence many of the ship's crew had in the Titanic and its stability. The final hour, when the ship starts sinking, is a brilliant feat of special effects and stunt work, and also highlights the tragedy of the event. Yes, you do have characters like Billy Zane's sneering villain, but that does not take away from the human losses we see. Titanic is a massive movie, and the scale is impressive, especially on the big screen. The first time I watched Titanic was actually on a television screen, but I long wanted to see it the way the film was intended. So when they re-released the movie in 2012, I went to see it on the big screen, and that experience elevated my appreciation for what Cameron accomplished. There's also James Horner's beautiful score, which adds to the film's awe. Titanic is a remarkable filmmaking achievement in my book, and an example of what a talented filmmaker, a brilliant technical team, and a grand story can result in when all three are put together and fire on all cylinders. A Night to Remember, meanwhile, jumps between a whole bunch of characters as they deal with the sinking. In fact, the Titanic actually hits the iceberg only about half an hour in, and then the rest of the film is spent on the crew and passengers trying to overcome this ordeal. When the iceberg is initially struck, a lot of the people on board just treat it as the equivalent of just ants near a picnic. A minor inconvenience, but nothing worth fretting too much about. However, the film then does a really good job of eventually showing the panic setting in. We get plenty of scenes of the passengers boarding the lifeboats and the difficulty of trying to make sure everyone remained calm. Of the many characters in the film, the Titanic's chief architect, Thomas Andrews, is probably given the most development as we see him grapple with the disaster. One thing A Night to Remember shows that Cameron's film only made small reference to are the nearby ships receiving the Titanic's distress calls. We spend significant time with them, and we see why they didn't go off to help the Titanic, which really highlights just how alone and helpless it was. The model work in A Night to Remember deserves mentioning, as the effects hold up very well today. While smaller in scale than James Cameron's $200 million production, they're still impressive to watch. At the time, the movie was actually the most expensive British film ever made, and you can see that money on the screen. Director of photography Geoffrey Unsworth, who later went on to film 2001: A Space Odyssey and Superman, did a great job of capturing both the interior scenes on the ship and the later sinking, as well as the coldness of the Atlantic nighttime. If you're in any way interested in the Titanic, or you've already seen the James Cameron film, but want to see another take, I do highly recommend A Night to Remember. And if you have watched both films, please let me know in the comments which one you prefer. And thank you for your question, Diver.